There we go.
Yes. Okay, so I have to properly introduce you. Drew Damberville. Drew, yeah,
Ruha.
from Seattle. And I know, well, not from Seattle, right? Where were you born and raised?
Nah, I'm from Jersey.
You're from Jersey. I knew it.
I'm from
But you
Jersey.
went to, yeah, you went to the
Went to,
University of Washington.
yep,
Um, you are a track star through and through.
I was. I'm old now. I'm an old man
Once
now.
and
I'm an old
always.
man now. Huh?
I said once and always.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, we met when you were at University of Oregon
Yes. Yes. And
doing your
I was running around in Seattle and then in Oregon and trying to just, have some fun and see some
oh, we used to
sights
kick it.
for sure.
Hold on,
Hmm.
I'm gonna turn up the volume on my end. Here we go. We good, we good. All right.
Okay. Well, I'm in LA now and I follow you on Instagram and I wanted to talk to you because in this particular series that I do on IG Live, we talk about we talk about some of the things that people are doing online, and you and I have been in the same circles as far as events for a long time, especially when I was in Seattle. You are like the king of nightlife. Um,
Oh man. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so I saw that you were going to be doing something with, I think, collaboratively about virtual events. And
Yeah.
so I just wanted to hear a little bit more about that because a lot of people are struggling to figure out how to shift their business. And so maybe you have some insights for them.
Man, so my company's H206 Events, and back in the day, as you mentioned, I was the club promoter, and we did a lot of events, and a lot of things was athletes, and we were that place to be in Seattle. Um, Getting older, as I matured, I like to say, I started doing more corporate engagements and working with, uh, fortunate to work with like Microsoft and a couple other big companies, and helping produce elements of their holiday parties or corporate events. And so a lot of these companies have their internal event teams, but those teams would reach out to me for different types of crowd engagement. So whether it's booking one of my DJs or me to MC the event, or bringing in, I do a pros versus Joes event where I bring in my professional athlete friends to play the leadership team at Microsoft Windows 365. So it's pretty dope. We get, I've had guys like Jamal Crawford to Sidney Rice and Jordan Babineau show up to play literally the leadership team at Microsoft is playing professional athletes that are like Super Bowl champions in basketball or football or things like that. So I get to use the contacts that I've made over the years, plus the skills that I've garnered doing events and bring it to the corporate arena. And then COVID hit, right? And we're
Right.
like, and I've built a collaborative force. Say, so I have a videographer team, I have a photography team, I have 5 or 6 legit DJs, depending on your genre. I have auctioneers. I have all these people in my toolbox, so that when you're hiring me to do an event, I go to my toolbox and I'm like, yo, I need you, you, and you. Wrap it up. This is the cost. Let's go and make this happen. Now we're all not doing live events anymore.
Yeah.
So I came up with an idea called Almost Dot Live, and it's the page we launched. And what it is taking all those different individuals that I work with, different entities, coming together and creating a collaborative so that we can produce virtual events. So my videographer, he went out and invested in buying all the gear needed to do virtual events. And it's one thing to do a live stream, it's another thing to show up with a camera crew and have 3 different cameras stage, a moving camera, be able to drop in commercials and do a full semi TV production in a
Yeah.
small space for a client. So that's where we are now, and that's what we've just literally figured out. We can stay where we are and drown, or we can pivot.
And the pivot is hard, and
Oh yeah.
it's needed in order to stay relevant, and to stay, financially solid.
But yeah, I
you
mean,
know
and it shouldn't take a pandemic for us. We should always be trying to evolve anyway. The person I was in my 20s, as I mentioned, I started off promoting nightclubs. My first pivot was going from club parties to going to corporate culture parties, right? We do an annual event here called the Seattle Polo Party, where we do
I
in
saw that. I
LA.
saw some on your
Yeah.
page. Yeah.
So LA, you guys have the Vufka Coal Classic and all that. Well, the gentleman, a good friend of mine now, Cameron, that created the Seattle Polo Club, reached out to me. This would have been year 6 of the event, but we weren't able to hold it. And we created a phenomenal event, great sponsors, great. But that's part of that pivot one. We went from being this in my 20s to this to, okay, what do we do next? And you figure it out and you go. And it's trial and error. We're still learning along the way, right? We're
Yeah.
still figuring it out. But figuring it out and moving forward is way better than staying where you were and drowning.
Right. Well, so what do you see as kind of the biggest challenge to taking a live in-person event and making a virtual event out of it?
What I've learned is client expectation. People think that something is going virtual, so it's way easier and it shouldn't cost as much, right?
Sorry for the background. We
That's
got
all right.
motorcycles going.
Got
So
people
people
popping
think it's way
wheelies. Yeah.
easier.
Yeah. But people assume like, oh, you're just showing up with a camera and we're just going. And I'm like, yeah, no, because now there's editing involved. There's, overlays. There's all this stuff of man hours that you don't see, right? That go into doing this virtual. If you want it done right, you could just have a
Right.
homie stand there with a camera. You can have a homie stand there with their iPhone and film you. That's cool. But if you want something that looks professional, legit, and you still want to be able to, gain those advertising dollars or get your donors to donate because they like what they see, it costs money. So
It does cost
that's
money.
the first thing. Yeah.
Well,
So
maybe
that's
you
the
can
first thing. The
adjust your
second thing,
prices.
yeah. Oh wait. Well, my thing, and the thing is, I would say it's that fine line between being fair, but then also knowing your value. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, but that's been the first upfront where it's like people call you for a quote, and in their head they think, "Hey, I saw that one event you produced. We have like $500," and I'm going, "Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You're like, you're gonna
yeah,
get just me and no one else.
yeah, yeah, yeah." No, you're not even getting me. Like, yeah,
Not even gonna get
you're not even getting me. I'm keeping it real.
right,
Like, yeah,
exactly.
no. So I mean, but it's kind of like you're married, right?
Hmm.
Okay. I call it the wedding DJ, right? You have the friend that can do it for a couple $100, or you have that professional that can make it like, wow, where do you
Right,
go?
exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
So I think the first is getting people over that hump. Internally for us, it's learning. So we've had practice sessions. We actually produced a podcast, right? We're in the middle of filming right now a new podcast. And that podcast is called Sound Table. And the goal of that, one, is to provide a platform to talk about some of the stuff that's going on in the community and all.
Yeah.
But the reality, the second half of that is selfishly we using that as experience. It's my same film crew. We use that as ways to troubleshoot and learn what we're doing when it comes to doing virtual events
Yeah.
and pre-recording and all. So we're creating our own practice for us.
That makes sense. I mean, troubleshoot it there and make positive waves on the other side. I think
Yeah.
it's really important for people to see that it is possible.
Yes.
Because a lot of people think that we're doing what we're doing and it's not exactly translating. But what we are seeing evolve is going to be the normal. So I hate to say get on the bandwagon now because it's not going back. But
Yeah.
I really feel like the troubleshooting has to happen now so that when 2021 hits, we're just on the you know what I mean? Like the train
Absolutely.
has left the station, and it's not,
Well,
so that we're not still trying to figure it out,
it's innovation. It's anything. Any tech startup. Like if 20 years later, if you're doing the same exact thing you used to be doing, did you really grow?
Right, right.
And
Exactly.
unfortunately, there's a large portion of our population that have been taught, grade school from everything is like, go get a job, work that job for 20, 25 years, do exactly that, play it safe, and then you'll retire and hopefully you have enough money. And we're realizing now that, companies aren't paying out pensions anymore, that 401k ain't enough. So like if you're not taking managed risks, You know, I'm not saying risk it all, but if you're not taking a managed risk on your, and betting on yourself to win, then why are you even here?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are afraid to take that risk to jump into the deep end of virtual and, because
Well,
some,
and I said that's why I say a managed risk. It doesn't
yeah.
have to be, you know, like with myself. It's not like we just said, "Hey, we're going balls to the wall." But the reality is, my, you know, I do live events,
Yeah.
right? All my clients were like, "Yeah, we're not doing anything for at least 12 months out." So it was either me standing there holding my thumbs and putting them like this, or finding a
Hmm.
new way. You know,
Yeah.
so for some of us, we had to. For others, regardless, if it's not virtual events and it's something else, you know, maybe you have a 9 to 5, right? Maybe you have more time on your hands now. Maybe it's that time you started that podcast or that one thing that you always thought about doing that you thought you never had the time to do. You might have
Right.
that time right now. You know, there's
Exactly.
you might have that time. Yeah. To at least
Yeah.
read up on it, you know, educate yourself on how to do it, learn,
Hmm.
even if it's just a hobby. But
Yeah.
I think we often put limitations on ourselves based on fear that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And
It shouldn't. And it holds so many people back. It
it
does.
does. It does.
Hmm.
And then, you know, so the art of the pivot, on our podcast, we've had great conversations. We talked to Dan Price, who's a influential business leader that decided a few years back to pay everybody at his company 70K regardless. It was huge. He got so much backlash from CEOs all over the world. Like, what are you doing? You're going to ruin capitalism. And his companies are still doing great and people are winning. So he's proven that you can pay people a fair wage and still get ahead in this world. You know,
Exactly.
we've had Hill Harper. I call him Mr. Harvard. He's a good friend. Hill Harper came on. We talked a lot about what's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, and things along that line. So we've had some great hosts, and all of them talk about the pivot. Like they're all Hill Harper's an actor. You know, he's on that show, The Good Doctor.
Yeah.
They're not filming right now. He's not
No.
sitting at home. He's using his powers to do other things. You know,
Yeah.
he's using his gifts to affect the community and help and give back. And so there's a lot of people, regardless if you're a multimillionaire to the guy around the corner, an actor to a guy working in a factory, there's ways that you can pivot in your own life, right?
Exactly.
That keep you moving forward.
And so, where can people find your podcast?
So our podcast, we have an Instagram page called Soundtable Live.
Okay.
It's the Soundtable Live, and then my Instagram page, it'll be featured on there called Almost Live.
Almost live. I love
Almost
it.
like, and that's it. Get it? We're almost live, but we're virtual. You know, so that's the whole
Exactly.
premise behind it.
Nice. Well, I
Yeah.
so thank you for taking the time. When we are talking about virtual and the shift, it's a good idea for people to see people like you who are doing things like this so that it makes it real for other people. It makes it real like,
Yeah.
oh, they can do it. Let me see what they're doing. Okay, let me see if I
Yeah.
can, emulate that or switch it so that it's mine or whatever. So that people know that virtual events are happening, conferences, virtual summits, anniversary parties, whatever that is, they're happening and they're going to
Absolutely.
get better and better over time, too.
Well, money
Um,
has to be raised. You know what I mean? There's
exactly.
donors out there, nonprofits, you know, all these nonprofits and after school programs. I'm working on a project right now for Bellevue Schools, a proposal for Bellevue Schools, and trying to keep the students engaged. Because what happens is you have kids that literally, there's a section. Let's keep it real. Student athletes go to school because they love their sport, or they see like their way out, or you know what I mean. You have kids that are hoping or banking on that scholarship, that are hoping on that one piece of opportunity, and that
Yeah.
season is now canceled or postponed. So what's the buy-in for them to tune into a Zoom call or sit on Zoom for 3 or 4 hours when the only reason they
Yeah.
went to school was to stay eligible so that they could go to
Right.
you know, they're missing their coach, their teammates, their other family, essentially. So we're trying to create ways to incentivize these kids to, and that'll all be through virtual events. You know, ways to incentivize them to participate, to want to be a part of there. Another part of that is the you know, student athlete, or not even, you take away the student athletes and we talk about students, right? You look at rivalry games and homecoming, everything that
Oh, yeah.
brought school pride, right? The
Activities.
spirit, the school
Yeah.
spirit, all those, they're all gone. You have kids
Yeah.
remote learning right now. So how do we get those kids back engaged again? So virtual events
Yeah.
is more than just the corporate making money. It's also making an impact, right? Figuring out new ways to engage students, figure out new ways to engage donors when they're used to sitting at a gala for, you know, paddle raises and spending money. Now you have to figure out how to get in front of them virtually and
Virtual
and keep them
auctions.
engaged
I mean,
virtually. It's a different beast,
yeah.
but there's some great. Funny thing is, there's companies that were always doing it. Um, so if you went to an auction and you had, you know, the high-end auctions would have the screen in the back, and when you bid on something, it would pop up on the screen.
Right.
And a lot of them had apps, so you can like bid on stuff on the app while you're there. All that technology is now just being used virtually. It was already there.
Yeah. It's been there. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
just tapping
it's
into
just
it.
exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
it's fun. I'm learning a lot of new stuff. And the reality is, we open back up to where we can do live events, right? There will still be a marketplace for this, because think of weddings. You know, perfect example,
Right.
wedding. You do a wedding and you have either the bride or groom is from the other side of the country and half the family can't travel. You can
Exactly.
still do a virtual installation as part of that wedding. You know what I mean? While
Exactly.
everyone's live, you can still film it in such a way that family can go to a Zoom or what and watch it while it's happening that couldn't make it there. So there's
Yeah.
always going to be a need for this. It's just
Yeah. There has been a
if you're
need.
savvy enough.
I never even thought about it that way, but you know, because most people just wait until everybody can get there, and you
Yep,
know, until the time is right, they just postpone their wedding. But I had a virtual graduation this year in May, so
yep,
everything is possible. You know,
everything.
I didn't get my hood, but that's coming.
It's coming. You'll get it with the
Yeah.
tassel. Do the virtual
Yeah.
flip. So yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
yeah, it's just more or less. We have to untrain ourselves from looking at stuff the way it always was. You know, that's
Yeah.
the worst. They say the worst phrase in business is this is the way we've always done it, right? COVID has
Yeah.
exposed that. COVID-19 has exposed that, and now companies are forcing themselves to look at and work things differently.
Yeah.
Innovative companies have already been doing it. There's a large section of America that's like, we've already on this. Like this is nothing new to us.
Right.
It's the old establishments that are having to rethink and just re-educate themselves on, and now you have to ask the question, why are we renting this 1,000 or 10,000 square foot office space at this much a month when we can have all these people working from remote or doing,
Yeah.
like, why are we
Yeah.
even doing it? So this is going to change a lot of things up.
Well, I thank you because your insight is so good. But I will catch up with you next year. We'll do something like this so I can see exactly like how many people are like knocking down your door.
Hey, I
Because
hope they all knock. We travel. Let's get it. It's virtual. We could do this
yes,
anywhere.
exactly, exactly.
So,
Well, thank you. I
well,
send
thank you
you
for
my
having me.
virtual hug, and I miss you.
I hope you're well. I see you and the family and you're doing your thing. And I loved it. It's been a while since we've connected. So it's great to see that you're doing well. Congrats
Thank you.
on graduating. And there's a doctor now. Like, you're a doctor. Pop your collar. Like,
Well, I'm not a medical doctor, but I'm a doctor.
no, you're a doctor. If you earned it, you a doctor.
Thank you. Well, I'll
Earned it.
see you sometime soon on the interwebs.
Yes. Well, if I'm in
It was
LA, I
fun.
know I have one more. I have one more person to reach out to when I'm in LA.
Of course, definitely. I will always be a doc though, because even though I went to USC, I'm not a Trojan, and I know you're a Husky, so.
I'm not. Uh, for the record, anyone watching, I was a Husky from '95 to '99. We ran y'all. You know this to be true. Y'all got good after I graduated. All right.
All
That's all.
right, I can give you that. I can give you that. But that's okay.
Take
I
care.
was a fan. I was a supporter at the time too, so I
You
had your
you were good
back.
peoples. You were there's I got a couple Oregon Ducks. You were good. You were always good peoples. I have a few Oregon Ducks that I'm cool with that didn't talk major. You know, you good.
No, no,
You were
no.
good.
It's all good. Have a good one. I'll talk to you later.
All right, take care. Thanks for
Bye.
having me. Bye.
Yeah. See you.